You know, I saw. In the market, they switch.
What does it say to you that the DNI?
Sounds like there's a deal, but it needs to be sold.
Ask questions. Immediate threat. Just one.
Chef somewhere. I'm trying to.
Look, I think the questions we're all asked is what's next. You know, you can't take back what's taken place. But what do we do next, and what do we assume and understand the Israelis and Iranians were next? In the final analysis, we're here because we pulled out of the JCPOA. In the final analysis, that was diplomatic efforts. So we applaud those efforts now. It's really the only thing that's left to do. This was a better briefing than we typically get.
Do you have a better sense of how much destruction there was and whether any of the...
No, I'm on the Intel committee, so I didn't learn anything new in that regard.
Can you give any update on whether or not the centrifuges have been moved or the status?
That's the kind of detail I can't give in these circumstances, but it's obviously an issue of concern.
The leak come up at all?
There was obvious admonitions, you can't leak stuff, and that's right. It is illegal, it is wrong, it is dangerous. It makes us less safe when people leak things. It risks our sources and methods. People should be prosecuted. Presidents for all time are angry about leaks, and they should be, Democrat, Republican. But history shows almost all leaks come out of the executive branch. I gotta go.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, let me give you some thoughts about what just transpired in there this morning. We talked about how historic and fateful these moments are. This is a historic time that we live in, and this has been an incredible 2 weeks. Of course, it began with Israel's strikes that were targeted against Iran's nuclear and ballistic missile programs. They eliminated nearly the entire top echelon of Iran's military command and nuclear scientists. And then, of course, this past weekend, the United States acted as we needed to act. And we had our military forces, of course, strike the heart of Iran's nuclear weapons program, we delivered a major setback that resulted then in a feeble face-saving response from Iran, and immediately thereafter a ceasefire agreement. We want to commend President Trump for his decisive and bold leadership and thank our military intelligence and diplomatic professionals for what they've accomplished. It is a true testament to America's leadership and military strength. And I will tell you, I was heartened by the briefing that we just got here and the reaction by all of our colleagues. It was bipartisan. There were Republicans and Democrats there. There was a couple of moments of rousing applause in support for our outstanding, extraordinary military servicemen and women. The pride that we all have as Americans, as the only nation on the face of the planet that is capable of this kind of decisive action. And again, as I said, it takes bold leadership to do so. The briefing today was thorough, I think very helpful for the members. They relayed very important information and answered a lot of the questions that were in the minds of members of the House here, and I know they did the same in the Senate yesterday. So we are blessed to be led by a cabinet of officials who are so good at their jobs, to have the acumen of an extraordinary chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Kane, and all of the personnel that work there at the Pentagon and in the U.S. military. I'm very proud to be an American today. I think everyone should be. And what I will say next, and what we expect, and one of the things that was discussed this morning, is that we now need Iran to engage with us in direct, good faith talks, negotiations, not through third parties, not through other countries. They need to sit down at the table with us and ensure that this peace is truly lasting. We're on the verge of a real peace in the Middle East for the first time in a long time. And that's because of the decisive leadership of the United States. Everyone around the world understands that. The President got a fantastic reception, as you know, at the NATO meeting, at the summit. And it is so encouraging to us that for the first time now, the other countries, NATO partners, are agreeing to commit 5% of their GDP to the fund to defend the peace around the world. The American people, American taxpayers cannot be leaned upon to carry everyone else any longer. We have to have and pursue an America First policy, and that means what is in America's interest. Of course, what has been done here was not just in America's interest, but in the interest of all peace-loving and people and free people around the world. So I have a couple of my great colleagues, our Majority Leader Steve Scalise here, and Brian Mast, who is the chair of one of our most important committees, our Foreign Affairs Committee. And if you want to have a few questions, I'm sure we can answer those.
You called this a major setback for Iran's nuclear capabilities. Do you have a sense on how much uranium may have survived, or how much was destroyed? What are you learning about that?
We have a sense about that. Some of this is classified, but I will tell you that there was a CIA press release, I think that went out yesterday, and they concluded that, Iran, this is a quote, Iran's nuclear program has been severely damaged, unquote. I'll put that in layman's terms. I would say it's a substantial setback, and that was a first-hand, authoritative, and reliable account. That differs greatly from the low-confidence preliminary assessment that was leaked, sadly and dangerously, probably from this body, and we're going to get down to the bottom of that. But you can dismiss the low-level initial assessment, and you can rely upon what the CIA has said, because these are first-hand accounts. It is clear, everyone can see by the videos, that these massive ordnance penetrating bombs did the job. And I think their key facilities have been disabled, and I think Iran is now a long time away from doing what they might have done before this very successful operation.
Did they rule out the potential for any restrikes?
I'm not sure how much of that's classified, and I shouldn't be getting into that today. But we are very encouraged about the situation and where it stands. We're very encouraged. I think the greatest evidence that we have of the effectiveness of this mission was that Iran came immediately and was willing to engage in a ceasefire agreement. That would have been unthinkable just a few weeks back. So it's a very good thing for the whole world.
Do you believe that the president needs to strike a deal with Iran, have something in writing moving forward?
Well, look, I think that's the next logical step. I mean, we will do what is necessary to maintain the peace, but it is in Iran's interest and, of course, in the world's interest for them to come to the table in good faith and make an agreement. That would be good for the entire region. We have peace in the Middle East, and that is a big step towards peace around the globe. So.
Thank you all. Has the Senate, have you talked to the Senate yet on when they will hold their vote and the House will get a chance?
I was in the Oval Office with Leader Thune as recently as early evening yesterday with the President. We had a long discussion about this and where the bill stands in its status, and we are very, very close. And Leader Thune has confidence that they could get the job done by this weekend, and we certainly are hopeful for that. We would still like to meet that July 4th self-imposed deadline, and the President likes that idea. I certainly like that idea, and so does Leader Thune. So we're in a wait-and-see posture in the House right here, and we'll see what happens. So we're ready to act.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks, guys. Thanks, guys.
Any interest of listening to the actual nuclear physicists in the U.S. Congress here?
Very interesting.
Okay. Yeah. I gets that. Yeah. So I'm Congressman Bill Foster. I'm a PhD physicist. Worked for 25 years at Fermi National Accelerator Lab, designing giant particle accelerators. I know this technology pretty well. I was very disappointed that we learned very little about the inventory of high enriched uranium, 60% enriched uranium, and its whereabouts, and what that meant for the breakout time to Iran's first nuclear device. There is, I think, frankly, very over-optimistic portrayal of what was and was not accomplished by this mission, because we do not have understanding and control of where all of that material is. I remind everyone that the 60% enriched material, while not weapons grade, is weapons usable. The Hiroshima device used a mixture of 50% and higher enriched uranium, and worked pretty well. And it is well known by thousands of physicists around the world, the physics of a simple gun-type device. Almost all of the components there require no special nuclear materials. The conversion of the 60% enriched materials, first to green salt and then to metal, casting them into parts, is all documented on the Wikipedia pages of Little Boy. If you look up that article, you will see, unfortunately, just how straightforward it is to make such a device. And I was disappointed that we did not see that the goal of this mission from the start was to secure or destroy that material. That's where they're hiding the ball, and that's where we have to keep our eyes on.
The President says it's all beneath all this rubble. Would you expect to see radiation levels or something like that if this had been damaged or destroyed?
Not necessarily. For technical reasons that I can't talk about. But if you have to understand that this inventory, we're talking about 20 or 30 scuba tanks full of material, where any 2 or so of those scuba tanks provide enough material for a first nuclear weapon. That is what we're trying to understand, where the location is and the disposition of in a situation where the intelligence may or may not be complete.
When the President says it's very difficult to move that stuff, do you buy that, or do you think that those are the type of tanks that could have been moved out?
To the extent that he was listening to competent technical people when he made that statement, he must have been referring to things like centrifuges and other infrastructure. The UF-6, as conventionally transported, is in cylinders that you can see exactly what they look like on the web and are not hard to transport through a number of means.
They're safe to transport?
Yes.
If there's not certainty that uranium was destroyed, are you worried that there will be additional strikes in order to complete the mission?
If we can somehow guarantee that we have secured or destroyed that material, the world will be a safer place. If that is not what has in fact been accomplished here, we are not safer. In terms of a first Iranian nuclear device.
In that case, would you support additional strikes to get rid of it?
I'm not going to talk policy here. I'm talking about what's known from the physics involved and what the capabilities are, given the inventories of different kinds of uranium.
What about the centrifuges and other infrastructure in Fordo and these other facilities? Is it credible that that was destroyed? Or did we
Very
just
credible.
not?
No, very credible that those capabilities have been degraded substantially, and I believe that. The centrifuges and other processing is irrelevant if you have a large inventory of 60% enriched uranium. That's point one. You know, you can make a higher performance nuclear weapon with 90% enriched uranium, but that doesn't have to be the game that Iran's involved in.
Did the briefers try to make the case that it was still there to you guys?
Don't want to talk about that.
What's your level of concern about the potential, not necessarily of a thermonuclear device, but of a dirty bomb possibly going off on the U.S. base or Israel?
The dirty bomb is normally talked about. I'm talking about a Hiroshima-style gun type, straightforward, you know, a yield in the tens of kilotons nuclear device. That,
when you say that material should be destroyed, how does one destroy that material?
you can disperse it enough that it's unusable. UF6 is very reactive. If you just let it loose in a cave, it will find something to bind up with. And so, you know, it's possible to recover it with a very extensive effort, but that would be a different ball game than just, you know, getting your hands on a couple cylinders of the pressurized UF6.
What do you believe needs to happen next for this?
I think that we have to understand the leverage that the Iranians and the free world have, and to engage in serious negotiations with the Iranians about putting a permanent lid on their nuclear program, starting with getting IEA surveillance on our entire inventory of 60% enriched uranium.
You talked at the outset about how this wouldn't have happened if the JPCOA hadn't fallen apart.
Yeah, I think frankly that the game was lost when President Trump withdrew from the JCPOA. Under the JCPOA, we had very strict limits and enforced limits on their inventory of enriched uranium at different levels. And when that was lost, the game was lost. And now we're in a situation where they have very large inventories of quite significantly enriched uranium. And unfortunately, that implies a very small breakout time to a first nuclear device. Under the JCPOA, and I spent many, many hours in the SCIF looking at different breakout scenarios. The fundamental representation there was that there was a one-year breakout time. If the Iranians kicked the inspectors out with the equipment that they were allowed to have, it would still take them a year. Okay, and now we're in a situation where it's days. All right, it was days prior to the strike, but they nonetheless have already used that equipment to make a very large inventory of 60% enriched uranium, and that's the situation we're in.
So if the uranium was not destroyed, they still have that capability to break out a bomb in a few days?
In a very brief period of time.
What's your level of concern about that?
Enormous.
What's a very short level of concern?
It depends on how much work they've already done. If you look at what was done to build the Hiroshima, the little boy bomb, almost all of it could be done in a small artillery shop. And there are a lot of that kind of capability all around Iran, and many. You don't need bomb physicists at this point. You need engineers. You need machinists. You need technicians. You know, the physics is known.
What did you make when Israel targeted all those nuclear scientists and all that?
That was important. That had a large impact on their capability going forward. Not so much on the breakout time. All right.
I really appreciate your insight.
Thank you. Let's see, if you need to contact my press, it's grace.bouton at mail.house.gov. Congressman Bill Foster, the PhD physicist in this joint. Well, you know, it's kind of embarrassing because, well, you know, obviously it's got the atomic weight of indium wrong, you know. And so, and so you walk down the street, people will point at you and laugh, you know. It's really embarrassing. It's embarrassing, yeah. But, you know, it was a gift, so it's a gift, so I kind of have to wear it.
Sir, I have to ask, do you wear that tie all the time or just periodically?